Hello YouTube reloaders. Thanks for watching. Hornady Loader here. My standard disclaimer, I am not an employee of Hornady Manufacturing, nor do I have any interest, financially or otherwise, in the sale of Hornady products. I've been reloading for almost 35 years, and for the last 20 years I've been using Hornady equipment almost exclusively, hence the name Hornady Loader. The Hornady logo is a registered trademark of Hornady Manufacturing, Grand Island, Nebraska. Today's video will be a discussion of the Hornady Lock and Load Classic Single Stage Press. Now mine, of course, has quite a few doodads attached to it. I've got all the goodies for it. Over on the left there, in the inset, you'll see the basic classic press or single stage press from Hornady. Of course, it comes with the frame, the primer feeder, the primer pocket catcher, the handle, that sort of thing. But all the other doodads on there are from inline fabrication. I have mine on an ultra mount from inlinefabrication.com. I also have the piggyback die holder on the back, attaches to the top of the ultra mount. And I have the automatic ejection system from Inline Fabrication, which I won't be using in this video. That also comes with the little deck here that holds a couple of bins and room for 3 die holders, or room for 3 dies. I've also replaced the handle on mine with the ergo arm, from Inline Fabrication. So mine's been modified quite a bit with all the little doodads, but generally it works the same. It's a single stage press. It just has some extra die holders and bin holders and so on and so forth attached to it. It's a standard O-frame design. Ram travel is 3 3/4 inches. The top of the ram, of course, has a connector for a standard shell holder. It'll accept any brand shell holder from any company. Like most single stage presses today, it has a provision for depriming and priming. What really makes it unique, though, is the die holder at the top is not just a standard 7/8 inch 14 TPI threaded hole. It uses Hornady's lock and load bushings. You may notice that most of Hornady's reloading tools start with the words lock and load neck turn tool, the lock and load overall length gauge, lock and load this, lock and load that. Well, that comes from Hornady's flagship design, basically. It uses these lock and load bushings. The inside of the bushing is 7/8 inch 14 TPI threaded, and they're designed to fit into a lock and load bushing at the top of most of the Hornady presses, and anything that takes a die essentially from Hornady is set up for these lock and load bushings. What this allows you to do is you can thread a die into the bushing, make adjustments to the die, get it adjusted just the way you want it, and then you can simply pop it out, put it away, and then when you need to use it again, you insert it, turn it about 1/8 of a turn, and it's ready to go. You don't have to readjust it. Presses that have just a standard 7/8 inch 14 TPI threading, you have to adjust the die every time you want to use that die. Well, not so with the lock and load. You simply lock the die in and start loading. Lock and load. Depriming on the classic single stage press is facilitated through a hole that goes directly down the center of the ram and there's a hole right here in the back where the primer is then expelled into the primer catcher. I'm going to use Hornady's universal decapping die. That's all it does, is deprime, doesn't size or do anything like that. Put a case in the shell holder, and as it comes up it engages the depriming die. The primer is popped out of the bottom of the case, goes through the tube, and if you watch right about here you'll see the expended primer pop out and into the primer catcher. I'll do that a couple more times in case you missed it there. Comes up, the primer is popped out, down through the center of the ram and out the back into the primer catcher. Just like that, nothing could be simpler. Priming on the classic single stage press is facilitated with this little primer cup here. I've got the large cup in there at the moment for 45 auto. Essentially you put a case in the shell holder, you take a primer, pop it into the primer cup with the anvil up, and lower the ram. Now as it comes down, the arm here will cause the primer cup to come into the center of the ram, and with a little bit of downward pressure on the arm it'll insert a primer into your case. So, case in the shell holder, primer facing up in the primer cup, downward pressure, and you've got a newly primed case. Very simple. Now, that's kind of a pain having to stick a primer in here every time. I also don't like to handle primers with my hands. So another way to do it is with an optional piece here. This is part of Hornady's positive priming system, PPS, what they call it. Essentially you have a tube of primers, and every time the arm comes up, the primer cup pushes aside a little spring here that holds the primers in. The primer will drop into the cup automatically and then come down and do your priming operation, and then come back up with a new case, of course, and pick up another primer like so. Now, to get the primers into the primer tube, relatively simple. Put a cotter pin in the end here to keep the primers from popping out until we're ready for them. And what we'll do is we'll use a primer turner. This is Hornady's primer turner here. What you do, there's two pieces to this. The bottom piece has a ridged bottom here that'll help pop the primers over. The lid has a flat inner surface. What you do is you dump your primers onto the bottom. Give it a little swiggle here. What that'll do is cause all the primers to turn face up. Got a couple. There we go. So all of them are face up, or with the anvil facing up. What we do then is we put the lid on, flip it over, so that now all our primers are face down, or with the solid end up. Now the primer pickup here is a little plastic piece. This is the large the tube for large primers. It also comes with a tube for small primers. And basically what you do is just start popping primers into the tube. They're held in by that plastic there. I found it's easier to use two hands with it here just to keep it even. Now the primer tubes will hold roughly 70-75 primers at a time, so you can do quite a few cases at a time. Now I'll just go with what we got here. I won't make you watch me do 70 of these. And we turn it upside down, and now we've got all the primers facing up. They're being held in by the cotter pin at the moment. And what we do is we come up to the primer block here. We put our primer tube into the block, and I'll remove the cotter pin, and that'll allow the primers to drop down into the block. Now they're being held in by a small spring here. Now as I raise the ram, primer cup pushes aside that spring, allows the primer to fall into the cup, and then we come back down. We've got a primer in the cup, and we're ready to prime. I'm gonna pop this out here and empty the primer out of it, so I'm not actually priming cases here. Then when it comes back up, picks up the next primer, comes back down, and you can see there's a primer in the primer cup. And you prime the next case. That's really all there is to it. Takes a little bit of adjustment. You got to get this this block adjusted properly on there so that the primer cup comes into contact and pushes that spring out of the way. Get it all just adjusted just right, and this will make the priming operation quite a bit faster for you, even with a single stage press. So, the depriming and repriming operation, very quick. I'm using the Hornady universal decapping die. Come up to the top, it'll deprime the case. You'll see the primer pop out into the primer catcher. At the same time, it'll pick up a new primer in the primer cup. And we come down, little downward pressure, and now we have a reprimed case ready for loading. One more there, so you can see it. We got a case with a used primer. Comes up, deprimes the case, picks up a new primer. Come down, little downward pressure, and voila, we're good to go. That's all for this video. I hope you liked it, maybe even learned something. If so, please click the like button. Maybe even subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and happy reloading.